From his first job flipping burgers at McDonald's and delivering the Washington Post, Craig Willett counts only 1.5 years of his adult life working for someone else. Welcome to the Biz Sherpa podcast with your host, Craig Willett, founder of several multi-million-dollar businesses and trusted advisor to other business owners. He's giving back to help business owners and aspiring entrepreneurs achieve fulfillment, enhance their lives, and create enduring wealth. The Biz Sherpa.
This is Craig Willett, the Biz Sherpa. I'm glad you could join me today. I'm in Springville, Utah, with Little Giant Ladder Systems. I'm grateful that they are friends of mine and that they would allow me to come to their offices today. I have the opportunity to visit with Ryan Moss, who's the CEO of Little Giant Ladder Systems. I think you'll find some insights here that will be good for each of us to think about. Ryan has a different path to business ownership than a lot of people, and he has a lot of innovative background, and I think he'll be an inspiration to those who will take the time to watch the entire video today. Welcome, Ryan.
Thanks, Craig. Appreciate you having me on.
You know, this is a great opportunity for me. Not everyone that's a business owner started out the way you did. When you started with Little Giant Ladders, how many employees were there?
Boy, there weren't very many at that time. There might have been, probably 35, maybe 40 on the outside, but really not that many.
And what was your initial role with the company?
So I actually started in manufacturing. I tease a little bit that I started at $4.50 an hour, and I've just recently got a raise to $5. But anyway, yeah, I started in manufacturing. I was punching rung and bending channel, sweeping floors, and just part of the manufacturing process.
And how many years ago was that?
We're coming up on 37 years now.
Wow, that's quite a bit of time with the company. I think that says probably a lot to why you're still here, your dedication. So with 35 employees, you saw a lot of different things happen. In the history of Wing Enterprises or Little Giant Ladder Systems, I know the company was sold by the family at one point. You were working with the company then, weren't you, when they sold it?
I was, yeah. It was sold to a company by the name of Technical Equities. There was a kind of a shady group that was running that, or at least an individual that ended up causing some trouble with that company and ultimately its demise. And because of all that, Hal Wing, who was the original founder of Little Giant Ladders, went back and bought all the assets of Little Giant and started over again.
And you were with them through that transition.
I was.
What role did you play in the restart of Little Giant Ladders?
So I had only been with the company for 2 years, still in manufacturing when all of that took place. And as Hal bought back the assets and opened a facility here in Springville, I was made the shop foreman, which was kind of terrifying. I was pretty young at the time. I was 23 years old, and a lot of the guys working for me were double my age. And but anyway, Hal saw something in me that maybe I didn't see in myself. I don't know, but he gave me the opportunity to be the shop foreman over this new facility.
And what did you do with those responsibilities once you got comfortable and settled into the major task ahead of you?
I think for me, really the way to understand how to be a good leader was to get right in with those people that were working on the line. And so I got involved in the challenges that we were facing in producing. At that time, we were producing hinges and ladders, 4 hinges and that type of thing, and really got involved in what does it take to build these, and what are the challenges? I used to maybe had a different view of, I'm just making this stuff, and I didn't really care so much about what the challenges were that were involved. But in a leadership role, then it's, well, what challenges are we having as far as getting materials or being able to produce enough on time and those type of things. So it really kind of changed my perspective by getting closer to the guy on the line to really understand what challenges he was having, and then how could I help him.
So where did you learn this leadership? I mean, did you have a formal education in leadership?
Actually, no. I have a high school diploma. And at that, maybe I often say an 11th grade education, because my senior year was spent in all gym classes.
So you aced everything else for the 11th grade, and you could just play your way
I didn't
out.
really have, I did have to have one English credit, of which I took Spanish for that. But anyway, formal education, I really don't have anything past high school. I do read a lot, but I will tell you that I was blessed with good parents that provided a lot of opportunities for me to work. Small farm and lots of things to do, and I was really engaged from a young age at taking care of responsibilities that I had on a small farm. And so I give a lot of credit to my parents for making sure that I knew how to work and how to problem solve.
So you were able to take those hardworking attributes and problem solve, to take it to the shop floor and figure out where the snags or difficulties were to make it more effective. So when next did you capture the attention of Hal Wing, who, by the way, is the founder of this company, and in and of himself, I've done an episode with Doug where we talked about him and some of his attributes. So our viewers have a little bit of flavor for who he is. But how did you take what you were learning on the shop floor and take it to him as the owner and president of the company?
I think I captured his attention early on. I was recommended by Jeff Dinsdale, who at the time was over manufacturing, to fill that shop foreman role. And it was early on where we were having some challenges in meeting some demand. And as we were trying to resolve some of those supply challenges, I had come across a couple of large containers of parts that had been set aside. Potentially, I can't remember if it was for quality issues or some type of issues. And we went through all of those and were able to glean enough good parts to be able to supply the demand. And that got back to Hal, and he came out and had talked to me about that. And it really was one of those early experiences that he really kind of caught his eye, and he said, I just don't think we've seen like that kind of approach before. And I think we really thought a lot alike in problem solving and in kind of work ethic and hustle and ingenuity. And we just saw a lot of things eye to eye. And so we became friends over the years, but I think mostly because we, shared similar values.
That's interesting. Elon Musk recently was quoted as saying that we have too many MBAs in the world. We need people who can set aside the financial statements and learn to innovate and do that. And so you mentioned that you and Hal probably bonded or found common ground on ingenuity and innovation. So not only solving that on the shop floor, I sat in board meetings where I saw you present new product inventions that you came up with. What role did some of the innovations that you have come up with, or that your team has come up with, because I know you won't take the credit, you're too humble, but I'll attribute it to you, and so I can embarrass you for a minute. But
well, you're going to.
I know the truth. You can't pull the wool over my eyes on that one. But I know that through your innovation, there were probably periods of time where the company being kind of a one-ladder, one-trick pony, it became something more than that. And maybe tell us a little bit about that, some inflection point in the company where your ability to innovate and where there were demands and other opportunities for your ladders to fill other markets than what you were penetrating at the time. How'd you go about that?
Sure. Maybe I can answer this with a little bit of a story, a little bit of history, because so you mentioned us being a one-trick pony. I specifically recall a time. In fact, I will never forget the time where many of us were around a conference room table in the old Springville facility, and we were having a meeting, not sure about what. Somebody brought in a USA Today newspaper and spread it out and laid it out on the conference room table, and there was a full-page ad of an identical replica of our product. Now, we had really one product in a few sizes. It was the aluminum articulating ladder. And they showed this product that said now available at Home Depot for $199. Now, we sold that product and we're the originator of that product at $400 or $399. So it was exactly half the price. And you can imagine kind of the gut shot that took place in that conference room. And the ripple went through the company. We later learned that this company that had this replica of our product had went to the home and garden shows, bought the ladder from our salesman, sent it to China, told them to copy it identically, to not change anything. In fact, they copied it so closely that you could interchange the parts from our ladders and their ladders. That's how close everything was.
Same kind of materials or different materials?
Similar materials. But they even copied the die lines from the extruders. They didn't know why they were copying things, but die lines are identification marks from extruders, and they even copied those. Yeah. But so here we had this, kind of gut shot that ran through the company, and we had salesmen saying, I'll never be able to sell another ladder again. How long are we going to be able to hold on? Are we going to make it? I need, I got a mortgage and kids to put through college and food on the table. Should I start looking for a new job? And so you can imagine there was some time that was really concerning for the company. We had a couple of different meetings on what can we do, and ultimately proposed to do an infomercial. Now, anybody that knows Little Giant's history today say, yeah, that was genius. Well, I think we were blessed because what we know about infomercials today is only 1 out of 100 work. And when we say work, that means that they maybe broke even, but drove some retail sales. Wow. Ours was wildly successful. Well, let me back up for just a second. Hal wasn't quite sure. Like, what is this infomercial thing? How is it going to work? And we talked about it a few times, and he finally said, okay, let's do this, because there was 2 years left on the patents. So we could either fight legally, but in the end, if we win, we lose because
the patents expire anyway.
Patent to be expired at that point, or take a different approach. So the infomercial was the other approach.
So the infomercial idea was so that you could capture the market.
Really,
as the innovator, the original.
To be the original, right? Because we weren't in big boxes, and so it was going to look the other way around, that this knockoff was in Home Depot was the original, and we're this little company copying. You have to think about it. This was all in 2000 and end of 2002, 2003. We had the Twin Towers go down in 2001, so the economy was going down, and so we had a 20% drop in sales at that time, and then we have this
price competition.
And boy, it was tough. We didn't have the money to fight legally or to really do anything else. And Hal had a little farm down here in Springville, went to the bank, and he bet the farm on this infomercial. Borrowed $1 million, and we went to work, spent about 8 months putting that all together. And there was a whole new excitement in this company that, we're going to shout to the world that we're the original, we're the best, made in America, all those kinds of things.
Right, so take pride in your product and let everybody know what it is.
And it was going to be this branding exercise. And so anyway, we got all ready, did the first spot.
But you didn't know that very few were successful.
We had no idea. We had no idea statistically that we were in a rough way as far as more than likely you would lose the money and your effort would be nothing kind of thing.
Because you didn't really have retail outlet to sell.
And when we did our first airing, although it was a small test airing, Everybody's waiting for those results. We get them at the end of the day, and had run after $1 million and 8 months in time. We had received 4 phone calls and sold 1 ladder.
Wow.
And another gut shot hit, and it was like, oh, wow, we've spent all this money and all this time, and we sold 1 ladder. And as you can imagine, all the emotions came back again. How long are we going to be able to hold on? We're not going to make it. Fortunately, we had some good people helping us with the infomercial, and they said a 25% close rate is pretty good. And I said, yeah, but it was only 4 phone calls.
Yeah, look at the sample base.
They helped us out. So when we talk about innovation isn't always just product. It's innovation in going into market in different ways. The one thing we did know over the many years we had been demonstrating ladders is when we demonstrate to people, we sell. And an infomercial is a bigger group of people, and we thought, well, we have to. So we did go back.
And your demonstration experience prior to this had been trade shows?
Trade shows, home and garden shows, state
county fairs,
those kind of things. And we were a small company. Didn't have a lot of money to do what we were about to embark on.
What were your sales like in that?
That time we were, we had slumped from about 20 million down to around 17.5 million because the economy was in a recession at that time, and so we were, small. So here's what happened: we went and made some changes, and the world turned around for us. We grew by 600% that year. The next year we grew by another 500%. So you can imagine in 2 years' time going from 17.5 million to 170 million. And doing that all in a little teeny facility. And I remember that time all too well because I was over manufacturing at that time. I was in operations, and we went around the clock, went from building 280 ladders a day to 7,000 ladders a day, all in that same tiny little facility. And we were blessed. It was wildly, wildly successful.
So you say you were blessed, and I can understand what you may mean by that, because having served on the board of the company at one point, Hal would start board meetings with prayer. And so I know he was a God-fearing man, believed in God. And I can understand that blessing comes from him, but I also understand you have to work to receive the blessing. So what about it, the innovation? What about your demonstration? Because you guys were expert demonstrators. Why did that appeal, in your opinion, in the infomercial market?
Well, first of all, I think one of the things that really helped was we had Hal as our host, and he had a lot of passion for the product. And, you do mention, we still today start our management meetings with prayer, and we believe that, we do have to work hard and do our part, but a little help from beyond is also help to get us where we're at today, and will help us to get there in the future. But I think we applied work ethic and let's call it the leap of faith in about everything that we've been able to accomplish.
So this was the time in Hal's life to his biggest sales moment, probably.
Yeah.
Ever, other than this first one when he pulled up to the first show to demonstrate his ladder. Next to that, this was probably a very pinnacle moment for him to do the biggest sales pitch of his life.
It absolutely was. And
I liked that he was all in, because he bet the farm. So he was not just feeling the pressure of that, but he had to prove that he was right. He had to believe in it.
He was all in. He risked. I mean, he would have given up the farm literally if it didn't work out. It would have went back to the bank. And that's the passion of Hal, right? And that came through in the infomercial. Of course, we had a great product, which also helps, right? An innovative product that does a lot of things. And that passion for showing and solving problems, right? So here's what happened. You had this great success, right? So sales went like this. But you also have to think about it. A very, very popular infomercial, and of which we still run the infomercial today, now almost 18 years later, which is another anomaly, because they usually last, if they're good, about 18 months. Now, we don't run anywhere near as much media today as we used to. I mean, back then we were spending $1 million a week on media. And but we were selling, and so we drove sales to all types of retailers. In fact, we ended up selling our product in Home Depot next to the knockoff.
Wow.
And we were double the price, and we were incredibly successful in Home Depot, even at double the price, because of that media, because of that, that infomercial that really drove demand.
I love that. That's really important. Often people ask questions about how to price your product, and so many people think they have to price to the lowest cost producer. And when you have a superior product and you're the original, you have a lot of room. This tells me there's a lot of flexibility and a lot of elasticity to be able to price. So.
Well, and the ability to create value, because I think a lot of times people with their product don't give it credit. If it's an innovative product, credit for what it will really do, what they're going to accomplish with that. And, if you think about somebody buying a 1/4-inch drill bit, they really don't want a 1/4-inch drill bit. What they want is a 1/4-inch hole. And the reason they want a 1/4-inch hole is they're going to put an anchor there and put a picture on the wall, right? So they really don't care about the bit. They care about the picture being hung on the wall. And so we would take the opportunity to show people what they were going to accomplish with a ladder, not just what the ladder did. And I think that's value of creating value of what is it going to help you do.
So it's not a ladder is a ladder is a ladder.
Right.
This ladder does 27 or 32 different things.
It's, the safest, strongest, most versatile ladder in the world. And so there was value that was brought into it. And that's how we could sell for double the one that was right there next to it. Now, we also sold in interesting places, right? Bed Bath & Beyond and linens and things. There was so much popularity that everybody wanted to sell it.
Wow.
But what happened, Craig, is what you would expect to happen is in time, enough people had seen it, and of course, the interest starts to wane. Right. And so we'd taken all of these sales for years and compressed them, which created this bell curve. But after you get to the top, where does it go? It starts coming down. So let me tell you, as we're coming off and you start cutting back on media because you can't afford to keep doing that, well, then the retailers start losing interest. And so you're losing infomercial sales, then retail sales. And at this point, then 2008, we lost the general contractor. So it was kind of boom, boom, boom. We lost all of those. And
2008 because of the financial crisis.
Because of the housing crisis, right? Yeah. All the general contractors were like, I'm not building anything. People were giving houses away at that point. Right. And so we had kind of the whammy after whammy, 3 of those in a row. And what we decided to do at that point was to innovate. We know we had this one-trick pony, but we can't just rely on that, especially where we've compressed many years of sales into a shorter period of time.
And what were your sales about this period of time? I'm just trying to give people perspective.
So they start, from our high of 170-ish, you go down into 2008 or 9, maybe that clear down to 40, right? So we never went back to where we were pre-infomercial, because the one thing that did was brand us. But we went, down a long, long ways. And so we had a choice. Do we hunker down and just ride out this, or do we innovate and be ready to take market share when the economy turns around, which we knew it would, just not how long is it going to take. Right. And so we decided to innovate. And I have an affinity for products. I love the innovation process and have been blessed with the ability to see what could be in products and to listen to pain points and interpolate those into products. And the best products solve pain points. But I will tell you, we learned the hard way in innovation. So this is what we're going to do. This is our mantra. We're going to innovate. We brought on some more marketing people and some engineers, and I work specifically with this group to say, well, here we go. Let's get going. And we
I'm curious to find out what you identified as the biggest pain point to go after the biggest potential
Well,
market.
I'll tell you what our biggest pain point was initially was not listening to the customer. So we spent 2 years and a lot of money. You think about how far our sales had come down, and this was part of our plan in innovating. We spent 2 years and a lot of money, and we created some really, really cool products that nobody wanted.
Oh, no.
And the reason being is we got ahead of ourselves. They were cool, they were innovative, but they weren't solving anybody's pain points. And so we learned the hard way on that. We had to step back and really analyze why is it that we're innovating, and what is it that we're going to try to accomplish with it?
So at this point in your career, you were leading this innovation team.
Yeah, I was, at that time, I was promoted from Chief Operations Officer to CEO in 2006.
So in the middle of all this.
It was in the middle of all that, and that was actually one of the first big major decisions was, what are we going to do next? And that was, let's innovate. But also I failed at it terribly because we didn't listen to the customer. We just thought we could sit down and create innovative things, which we did. But it was
I'm glad you did that, because normally I have to ask people what their greatest failure is and what they learned from it. But you just told me willingly what it is.
Epic failure. Absolutely epic failure. So here's the thing that really kind of helped get us going. During this time, after we'd had these failures, we started to realize, okay, wow, we really need to get some people in here and talk about ladder usage and what pain points they have and what struggles and all those types of things, and really understand the end user. And so we started to do that. We brought a lot of general contractors in here, and we showed them some prototypes and
so
things we were working on.
So you're looking more industrial users, not retail users.
Yeah, okay. We were focusing kind of on the industrial. And so we brought them in, and we started listening and just talking and what challenges and what kind of thing. And it started opening our minds to so many opportunities with ladders. At that time, I was on the board of the American Ladder Institute. Today, I'm the president of that group, which is made up of the North American ladder manufacturers. And we weren't really talking about the same things on this group that we were hearing from these contractors and safety professionals and all of those. And so I found it interesting because many of them started talking about ladder accidents and how these safety professionals would, have to go to the families of somebody that was either killed or severely injured in a ladder accident. Ultimately learned through this whole process, and I couldn't believe that we weren't talking about this in the American Ladder Institute, that there's 2,000 ladder accidents every day. Wow. And 100 disabilities from those accidents and a death every day. And I thought, how in the world could we be part of an industry that somehow finds this acceptable? If it was the airline industry, there'd be congressional hearings every day about how to solve this problem. But apparently, since it's ladders, it must be okay. And I was just really, really surprised. We learned from these different professionals. At the same time, I'd been reading a book by Simon Sinek called Start With Why. It's a fascinating book. Highly recommend it to anybody in business. The premise is that people don't buy what you do, they buy why you do it. And I'm an all-in believer on that. In fact, I give a lot of credit to Simon Sinek for much of the success. He doesn't know this, but the success we've had because that started us on a path. And so all of this is kind of happening, and I finished the book and went to the rest of our management team, and I asked them to read it with me, not literally sit down and read it, but so we made a weekly meeting where we'd read a couple chapters, get together and talk about it. Till we got done, we said, we're going to create our why. And so we got all the way through, and we've got it, guys. This is our why. And I'm going to be embarrassed to tell you what I thought it was or what we thought it was, but I'm going to tell you.
I appreciate your honesty.
I'm going to tell you. So we get through the whole thing, And we say, okay, our why is chasing excellence. Now, if you've read the book, you'd say that's a terrible why, right? And it was. But we had all the justification in the world. Chasing, you're doing things with speed, and excellence is never attainable. So you're going to have these. You're always going to be moving the bar up on your products, But today I just cringe to think that we actually
it's
accepted
inspirational, but not concrete enough to do anything, not measure
so,
it.
yeah, there's really it just feel good with some justification. So anyway, we go, okay, that's our why, chasing excellence. And a few weeks later, I'm getting on a plane to come back to Utah, and I get a phone call from Ted Hartman, who was our marketing coordinator at the time, and he just says, "Hey, we can't do it." And I said, "Can't do what?" And he's like, "We can't do the whole chasing excellence thing." And I said, "I'm so glad you called me because I feel the same way." And I said, "I don't feel anything when we say it." And he's like, "We don't either, and we don't get like how to promote it or anything." And I said, "Super. Let's read the book again." So we all got together, we read the book again, we went through the whole exercise. And this time when we got done, when we said it, we felt that we had to have no rationalization. And that was, our why was preventing injuries and saving lives.
I took a picture in your boardroom of that on the wall this morning. I thought, okay, this is the why.
And I will tell you, it was a reinvigorating turning point for Little Giant Ladders. Because you think about it now, we don't just get up to build ladders to sell ladders. We get up to get the one guy home tonight to play soccer with his kids or go to his daughter's piano recital or take his wife out on a date. That's what we do. Wow. We do it through better climbing equipment, right? And so it now drove all the decision-making in innovation. We're not going to innovate anything unless it helps to prevent an injury and save a life, right? It has to make the product safer.
And it's interesting that you did this by not being sued by someone forcing you to do it.
No.
Usually a lot of this comes
to do with
right.
that. We actually have very, very low incident rates with our products.
Right. And so probably did from the beginning.
Oh, from the beginning. It's been, inherent in our design and quality and all of that. But we realized that by having this why, it could lead our innovation. But not just that, everything we do in the company, right? So there's signs out in the facility that says every rivet, every weld, every person matters, right? So those building the product knowing that, hey, people are going to climb this. And understanding kind of that, I don't want to say that we embraced those statistics, but we kind of did. That 2,000 injuries a day, 100 disabilities. We just said, let's not shy away from this. Let's embrace it and see if we can lower it. And so it invigorated the company. And now everybody comes to work knowing, hey, we're just trying to get that one guy home at night that might not come home. And that's our why.
And how did that translate into sales then?
Oh, the thing that was, so think about that kind of beacon to product innovation, and then taking those innovative products back to these safety professionals that came here, or the ones that we visited with all over this country, and shown them, hey, we listened to you. We heard. So we took the 5 leading causes of ladder accidents, identified how and why they're happening. Most of them really are basically just human traits where we're overreaching. So we make products that if you're going to overreach, we still discourage it, but we know that people do it.
Right.
We make it harder for them to get hurt doing it, right? So we kind of protect them from themselves. We have a ground cue at the bottom of a ladder. 25% of ladder accidents are missing the bottom rung while descending.
Wow.
And so we now have an audible, tactile ground cue that when you're going up and down, you hear that and you know, oh, okay, I'm safe to step off. I could go on and on about all of these innovations we have. Most people, when you tell them innovate a ladder, they look at you like,
yeah, how are you going to do that?
What could you possibly do? Isn't it like rails and rungs? And we show them what we have, and their minds are like, wow, I had no idea you could do all this with a ladder. And so we have, a full-on innovation team, a whole group of engineers now. We lead the world in ladder innovation. We are the benchmark for ladder innovation that really helps from a safety perspective. But then we also learned something else that's really, really critical is safety is very important to safety professionals. Not important, well, everybody wants a safe ladder, but a lot of people are saying, hey, I use a ladder to get a job done.
Right.
And so it's also critical to understand that we have this kind of mantra, faster, safer, right? They need to be able to get their job done quickly, whether you're doing it for yourself or you're making a living by that. People want to get it done quickly, but they also want to make sure they're safe in doing that. And so we've designed all of these products that really do make it to where they can be highly productive, yet safer at the same time. And so having that why helped really in product innovation, because that drove all of these new sales for people that were looking for answers to this problem.
Right, but you mentioned, and so I'm curious because I think this might be a key for some people. The safety people, do they make the buying decisions? And who makes the buying decisions? And how do you get going from the safety perspective to getting companies to adopt your product, not only from a safety standpoint, but from a function and a cost-effective manner? Because you're probably going to be more expensive than your competition.
We are. Innovation costs money. Pioneering new products costs money. Marketing costs money. All of those things make you more expensive. And so I will tell you that's not an easy approach, but what we did is we took our products to the safety professionals, and for the first time they said, wow, somebody actually listened to me. So we made friends very, very quickly, and we did this in many, many industries. But then we would get them some sample products, and they would get them in the hands of their users. And the experiences they were having and seeing, another ladder, in fact, one of the leading causes of ladder accidents is the weight of carrying an extension ladder. Back injuries, neck injuries, shoulder injuries, knee injuries from carrying those big old extension ladders. We'd reduce the weight by 25%. Wow. So you can imagine end users going, no, I don't want I know I'm field trialing this one, but I don't want my old ladder back. This is way better, right? So that would kind of just spread through. And so we had to do a lot of years of expensive legwork to get these products in the hands of people. And now people see them all over and like, oh yeah, I want that. And so we did take it to the safety professional because he has influence when it comes to, you think about it, injuries and accidents are a cost, a business cost.
Right.
And so
right, when they start adding up their disability costs.
Right, you start adding lost work time, right? All of that. Procurement's going to take a different route. They're going to say, hey, well, I'm incentivized to buy cheaper products. Well, that's where we use these safety professionals as our leverage in those companies to say, hey, time out here, I'm incentivized to reduce costs due to accident and injury. And so those working together, ultimately, it's been able to work.
Combine their budgets, and they can afford it.
So, and then some of that stuff is carrying on into retail now because, most DIYers or weekend warriors, homeowners, they want to have good quality products, and they also have day jobs, and they see what's out there in the professional world. And many people that use a DeWalt drill in their day job also have one for their home, right? So I think we're having a lot of success, and people also appreciate innovation. They will pay for it, and we've proven that over and over, is that they will pay for innovation that solves problems. It's riskier and harder. The one other thing that I think that really helped in our favor, you think about ladders, right? It's probably maybe one of the first tools ever invented. We joke that Adam and Eve used a ladder to get the fruit, but probably wasn't. But if you think about it,
it was a fairly new tree, so it might have been short.
Yeah, it might have been short. But you've seen pictures from Anasazi ruins or whatever where there's old ladders there, right? So ladders were invented. They were invented before the wheel. So we're talking about a category that is thousands of years old. And I think that's why the industry is so stale, is because it's just kind of commoditized it. You'll see on Black Friday a ladder for $19, right? You can't buy the materials for $19, let alone retail it for that. But that's a whole nother discussion. People have taken what we view as a life-saving tool and put it into this throwaway category, which we just said, we're going to take a different approach because we believe that human life values more than a throwaway item, and that we're going to take this approach where we're going to help you work safer, but also more efficiently. And it will cost a little bit of a premium, but we have found that people are willing to pay for that, and that's every day. We have the most expensive ladder, and yet we're growing year over year over year. We're a 48-year-old company now with, I mentioned to you, the last 3 years in a row, 20% year over year over year. At a 48-year-old company, we're blessed, and it's working because there is an appreciation.
Because of branding, then innovate on top of that branding, and you bring the why so that everybody understands.
You bring that all together, and it's that listening to the customer, right? One of our products, there was a company in Salt Lake that came down, a safety professional, described the problems he was having. One of our, in fact, the most expensive product we sell today was a direct result of listening to that safety professional. And that is now going all over the world, being used. And it was because we listened to a problem he was having, and we innovated based on solving that specific need. So it's the combination of those things of truly understanding the customer.
You know, it's my belief that problems require truth to solve the problem. And then if you take the premise that I believe in, that truth resonates with people. So the truth resonates with the users of your product, or they wouldn't be continuing to order it. And so when you're able to solve the problem with the truth and get the truth out, then there's no sales pitch, there's no sales job. There might be some marketing, there might be some marketing channels and that, but now you've solved probably one of the business's biggest problems is how do you distinguish yourself? And you did it. How to solve the problem. Now, you solved a different problem for me. You know, as I look at business owners in the Biz Sherpa podcast, I typically will see people who started on their own or who are third or fourth or second generation in the family. You're unique in the sense that you're not a member of the Wing family who founded Little Giant Ladder Systems, and you still became a business owner. Tell me a little bit about what that was like and what that means to you.
Well, first of all, I don't take it lightly because I understand outside of Hal and Brigetta, who founded the company, and their children, who had ownership in the business after Hal and Brigetta passed, that I was the only one outside of the family to have ownership in the business. So I don't take it lightly. I do feel very, very blessed to have had the opportunity to participate in ownership. And I will tell you that for me, when you have that little mind shift of that, hey, this is partly mine, right? I was a minority stake in it, but every decision I make is also directly affecting me. That I think it does change your decision making some. Although I felt like the reason that I got it in the first place. And mine came in buckets over the years. I mentioned I've been here for 37 years, and so it came in, not all at once, in some along the way. That even when I first started, I still tried to work as if it really meant something because it did. I was just taught that if you're going to do a job, you do it right. And you get in and do it and be dedicated. I went and I wouldn't recommend this to anybody, the first 16 years that I worked at Little Giant without taking a vacation day. I went 30 years without taking a sick day. And I can promise you I was sick. And I wouldn't recommend that, right? I don't know that was the right approach, but it worked for me. And I know that Hal saw that dedication. He saw the problem solving. He saw the initiative. And he didn't want to lose it, right? As a business owner, he did not want to lose that. And so, I think the first thing he did, even before stock initially, was like, hey, I'm gonna pay for a whole life insurance policy for you as this golden handcuffs. As long as you're here, you have this kind of thing. And then he just saw in time that I need to make him more and more a part of this. I think part of my success also, and I've tried to help our people understand that it doesn't, not that Hal had every answer, because he didn't. He had a lot of people to help him grow this business. But I did try to understand him and the way he thought. And I could pretty much finish his sentences. I knew what the way he thought about certain things. So if a problem came up, I could pretty much tell you, I know exactly how he would address. And 99.9% of the time I was spot on, because I made it a point to understand the way he viewed business and the way he viewed problem solving and the way he would view spending money, those kinds of things, right?
So you aligned yourself with the values of the ownership, and that put you in a position to be an owner.
Yeah, it's like, hey, he's acting just like we are, and seeing things the way we are. That doesn't mean I didn't have opinion. Many times, Hal would come to me with the problem and say, what do you think we should do? And I would tell him, and he would say, I think you're right. Wow. And we would do it, right? He wouldn't always come in with, many times he wouldn't come in with the answer. He would come and ask me, what do you think we should do? And so it wasn't that I was just yes man on everything. It was, I'll give you a perspective, and let's share perspectives, and let's come to but I felt like it was important to understand that. I got to the point, and we laugh about this a little bit, and a few others in the company that have been here a long time, depending on what he was wearing when he came into the building, you knew exactly the mood he was in. And so you would know whether to be in another part of the building or if you were going to be around him. And so I think, maybe you don't have to quite know the person that well, but for us, it was, in my case, I felt like really understanding him helped me to propel my career here and then ultimate ownership. And so, I'm going to say something that you wouldn't say about yourself, but I wonder what your reaction to this statement would be. And you used this earlier when you were talking about the product. You talked about adding value. You might be dedicated. That could add value, but you said it alone, not taking a vacation for 16 years, you don't recommend, and it doesn't necessarily add value unless those are productive dedication. That's exactly right.
And being able to align yourself with the philosophy of ownership qualifies you to be an owner potentially, but probably people get ownership or succeed in business because they add value to the company, to the product, and ultimately to the lives of the people who benefit from the product. How do you react to that? I know I'm embarrassing you because you probably wouldn't say
you're
that.
You're right.
But what I heard today is a story of someone who added value.
That's the thing is people get, it's the difference between getting a cost of living raise and a raise, right? Cost of living is you existed, you did okay,
right?
Whatever.
You didn't stub your toe too many times.
Yeah,
right?
and I should be careful on that, because there's times in a business cycle to where maybe you can't do more than a cost of living, and so you just do that. But there are those who get a raise because they brought value. They brought something to the company, and you shared with them what they brought. I would say, I have been fortunate to have ideas, products that have been developed, things that have truly brought value to the company, and I've been fortunate that way. And I can't say this without saying that I feel like I've been blessed, but I've also worked hard for it. It has to be a combination of, luck. What is the saying that luck is when preparedness meets opportunity?
Exactly.
Right. Yep. So. There's definitely a combination of that, but you are right. I mean, if it's not perceived that you're bringing value, people won't give you something of value, right? It really is an exchange for value.
And I think that is the greatest lesson we can take today. Ryan, I appreciate your time. This has been very insightful, very rewarding to me, and it will be to all the viewers as they watch this video. I think it's amazing the value that you've been able to add, and it not only has blessed many lives with the safety and the penetration that you've been able to do, and the thought of somebody going home tonight to their family because they were more safe on the job because of the innovation of the company you preside over. But also, I look at it and say that you add value to the company every day. The fact that you would admit that you were wrong on the why and then go through the exercise twice tells me not only are you dedicated, but you're humble enough to know that when you don't have it right, you need to do what it takes to add that value. I appreciate that. It's one of the greatest lessons, greatest examples that I've ever seen, and I know that this will mean a lot.
Thank you. One thing that I tell everybody that comes to our facility, and this particular facility is 250,000 square feet, is we have some big rooms in this facility. But the biggest room is the room for improvement. And I think if we own up to that, life is a lot better. Yeah, sure, we all have egos and we all want to put on the face that we know what we're doing. And truthfully, none of us faced 2020 ever before, right? And you just have to do your best and have to recognize your weakness and shortcomings. And I actually feel like there shouldn't be anything wrong with sharing your failures, because we learn more from our failures than we do our successes. And if more people are open about those, we could, I think, accelerate business growth by being willing to share those with each other and to recognize that we learned. It's not really a failure unless you don't get back up. If you stay down, it's a failure. But if you get back up, it's a success.
But so often we think when we do fall down, we're going to get fired anyway. And so it's kind of hard to own up to it.
It can be.
But I think you're a great example of that. 37 years with a company, and I think there's some rewards that you've experienced recently. And I'll be talking with one of your partners in this, Hal's son, Art, and he'll tell us a little bit more about what happened with the sale of this business this last year and how you rolled some of your equity and stayed in. But I commend you for your example. I'm grateful that you'd be a guest today on our show.
Thank you.
Thanks for taking the time. I know you're busy, and it's a busy time of year. And I do know Ryan's leaving next week to go on a vacation to the beach.
I am. I'll tell you this. I would close on this note. I have learned that not taking a vacation actually was hampering, and that many, in fact, most of these people here dread the fact when I go, because I come back with, after I've relaxed for a couple days, I've got all kinds of ideas, and they're like, oh boy, here we go. But I truly have had some of what I would consider my best thought processes and things that have helped the business while I've been on a beach. And so you can't spend all your time there, but if you block that out, it is amazing how the subconscious will take over when you kind of pull away from the daily grind.
And there's a lot to that. I finished reading a book recently, The Essentialism by Greg McKeown, and it's a great book if you haven't read it. And it kind of subscribes to that, when you do less but better.
Yeah.
And I think that's something we can all strive for. Well, Ryan, I appreciate your time. This is really meaningful. I'm glad our friendship continues through the years, and that you respond to my call to be a guest. This is Craig Willett, the Biz Sherpa. Thanks for joining us today.
Be sure to go to our website to access the resources related to this episode at www.bizsherpa.co. If you enjoyed this show, tell your friends about us and be sure to rate our podcast. Craig would like to hear from you, so share your thoughts in the Facebook community at bizsherpa.co. Follow us on Twitter at bizsherpa_co and on Instagram at bizsherpa.co.